Well, good morning and happy Friday. I am coming to you because I realized that today's digital learning is division of fractions. And I wanted to make sure that everybody had a clear understanding of how to do it because initially I didn't teach it through reciprocal. I recently showed my accelerated class the reciprocal way, and I still had some that were confused. So I had to make sure that my board was visible to the camera. I wanted to go ahead and go over one, reminding you all how to divide fractions by finding equal pieces, and also show you that it's the same as finding the reciprocal. So in the example of the first problem, it was 2 1/2. I hope that you all can see that my marker is running out already. And it's divided by 4/5. And we want to first convert the mixed number to a fraction. And so in doing that, remember that 2 times 2, we multiply denominator times whole number. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 gives us 5. So it's now 5/2 divided by 4/5. And you know, when we divide, we want to ask ourselves the question, how many are in something else? So how many 4/5 are in all of 5/2? But what we realize is sometimes it might be hard to find how many 4/5 and 5/2 because they're not equal pieces. And so what you want to do is essentially get both of these to have equal denominators. And so when you think about 2 and 5, you come up with the thought that, hey, both of those have 10 in common. So you want to find equivalent fractions or equivalent ratios. And so we take 5/2 and we say, hey, I know that's going to be equal to something over 10. And you take, let me move it down a little bit for you. Hold on. You take, let's move it over here, 5/2. If you see my faces, I had to put on a hat because, you know, I want to make sure that I am appropriate for the camera, at home, and comfortable. So 5/2. And we make that equal to something over 10, and 4/5. You make that equal to something over 10. And so trying to find an equivalent ratio, we know that 2 times a number gives us 10, and that number is 5. So 5 times 5 equals, hopefully you said 25. And then 5 times a number equals 10. And we know that 5 times 2 is 10. So 4 times 2 gives us 8. And so now we're at the point where we just go back to the original problem. And 5/2 is no longer 5/2, but it's also equivalent to 25 over 10. And so we'll write 25 over 10 divided by 4/5 is now 8/10. 8/10. And so now we're dealing with this division problem, which is equivalent to this division problem. So you ask yourself how many 8/10 are in all of 25/10. And so at this point, we could draw a figure if we wanted to, but it seems like it will be too much. And so what we need to do now is go ahead and divide. And so when we divide straight across, we know that 10 divided by 10 will give us 1. Go ahead and erase that. Equals 1. And so then at this top piece, we're at the place now where we have to take 25 and divide it by 8. And so we can write, I need space, so I'm gonna erase this. No, you know what I'll do? I'll bring it down here. 25 tenths divided by 8/10. I hope you all can still see it. So 10 divided by 10 is 1. Always remember that. 10 divided by 10 is 1. And 25 divided by 8 is going to give us a number. It's not a clean number. And so we literally have to divide 25 divided by 8. And so when we do that, we should, if you have calculators, you'll see that it comes out to be 3. If you have a calculator, your decimal will be 3.125. And if you don't have a calculator, then your decimal will come out to be 3, or your fraction, sorry, mixed number will come out to be 3 wholes and 1/8. Is that correct? Let's just check to make sure. So we got 25. 8, always check to make sure. We know that 8 times 3 is 24. We subtract, we get 1, so that's 1 over 8. That is correct. And so your answer to this division problem is 3 1/8. And so my students who I'll just hold it there for a second if you need to take a picture. Hopefully you can see it. All right, all the way through. And so in this problem, if you were trying to do the reciprocal, what you end up getting to this place sooner. This place right here, I'll just start. So when you think about this, you still have to convert your mixed number to the fraction. And so you would get 5 halves. I'm gonna put it over here. So 5. Oh, that is an ugly color. You cannot see that. There we go. 5 halves. And so dividing by a fraction is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal. Reciprocal is we kind of think of it as the flip of, and you get 5 over 4. And so when you look at that, you end up with 25 divided by 8. Well, didn't we get 25 divided by 8 right here? And so we end up getting the same thing, and then we have to go through this process. And so this is something where we teach you in 6th grade how to divide by fractions, finding a common denominator. But essentially, when you go into 7th grade, you will be multiplying by the reciprocal, because multiplication seems to be easier than division. Just like those of you that are already in accelerated, you realize that we can add, but then we can also, or we can subtract, and then we can also add. And so subtracting a number is the same as adding its opposite. So just wanted to help you guys out a little bit, and hopefully it did help. Enjoy your day off. Well, no, first do your digital learning and then enjoy the rest of your weekend. All right, bye-bye. How do you stop this? I'm trying to stop it, but it's not.